Hey man, so this is how you would create that sort of text animation. When you start After Effects, it's probably going to look something like this. Obviously, on the side here, you have your media that you would import. This is the project panel, and then you have your timeline down here, and then this is where you would set your stage or your composition. So I'll just show you a little bit of how it works, and I'll try to keep it really fast. So if I go to File, Import, File, and I go to my folders, I'm just going to pull in a random little video that I shot. Let's see, where did I put it? I think I just put it on my desktop. Desktop? Where did I put it? Desktop junk. Modified. There we go. So here's a video I just took of myself. You can drag it onto your timeline like that. You can also create a new composition by clicking that, and this is where you can set, whatever you want here. Right now I have it set to duration in frames, but if I hold down Control and I click this corner, I can change it so it's like a regular time code. So if I click this, I can, if I wanted to do a square 2160 by 2160, this is 7 seconds long, press OK, and then I'll get a square, but I'll just go ahead and delete that. But you can also just drag the video on your timeline. So I filmed a little video of myself making some motions just to give this example, but in order to get the text effect behind you, so first of all, this is the timeline, right? This is where your layers are. If I press L twice, 1, 2, you can actually see the waveform, so you can see me talking. If I toggle this little arrow down here, this is where you can see like the various properties of this layer. So transform, this is where you'll see like your, the usual transform stuff. Yours would look like that. It would say position. So just ignore what I just did. But you have your anchor point, which is this point here in the middle. It basically means that if I'm going to like rotate the layer, which I just pressed W, I can rotate. It's going to rotate on that anchor point. So Control Z that. If I press Y, I get this little tool where I can move the anchor point somewhere else. So I can go like that, press W again, and then I can rotate like that. Control Z. But you can also just like down here, rotate these things, and you can, change the opacity of a layer, make it transparent. You can, change the scale of a layer. But what I'm going to show you is really, it's going to start like this. So first I'll select the layer that I want. I'm going to click this button up here. It says Roto Brush Tool, right? And then once you click it, you double click on the layer, and it's going to, so you have your composition here. This is the composition that we're in. And then you actually have like a separate stage environment where you're actually in the layer, and this is how you would use this tool. So if I just scroll in, I can scroll in with my mouse. You don't need to actually trace around yourself or like trace. You can literally just like do a rough sort of coloring, and you can see this purple line around my body. This is basically After Effects' auto way of recognizing me as a person. You can see that it actually highlighted a little bit of the environment over here. So if I hold Alt, it'll become a minus symbol. So this is plus, minus, holding Alt. I can sort of erase that section, and it'll do its best to sort of find me. You can also see over here a little bit of the curtain or whatever. I can make this brush like bigger or smaller by using the open or close bracket. No, wait, that's not what I have to do. Sorry. No, you have to hold Control and then drag. Like you hold Control and then press the left button on your mouse and then drag up and down. So Control does that. So I can make it a little bit smaller, and then I can hold Alt, and I can erase this little bit. And then I'm just going to bring my neck a little bit back in. The other cool thing you can do, because it's going to give a sharp line. Oh, wait, let's get this little bit over here. This little bit over here. And then if I actually if I want to just move around, I can hold the space bar and then like kind of look around here. I'm not going to be perfect about this, but you know, whatever. So if you want to, it's going to give a sharp line, but if you, for the hair, like obviously like I have short hair, so it's not a big deal, but if you want to make sure that it's like softer around the hair, you hold down here and click on Refine Edge Tool, and then you can actually just paint around the edge of your hair. And what it's going to do is it's going to create sort of a black and white sort of, it recognizes like what's hair and what's like the background. And then the next thing to do is you don't have to do that for every single frame. All you have to do is down here, there's this button that says freeze. And then if you highlight over it, or if you just hover over it, it says cache and lock rotor brush and refine edge propagation. I don't know what propagation means, so don't worry about that. Just click that. And what's going to happen now is it's going to load. It's just going to basically like follow along with everything moving. And it's doing a really good job of keeping with the now see my hand got all fucked up here, so I'm probably gonna have to correct that, but I'll show you how to do that once this is done. Okay, good. So it's done loading now, and if I scroll through, you can see that my hand went up here, so I'm gonna try to correct that. I'll have to kind of remember how to do this, but I think all you have to do is grab the tool and then unfreeze it. You might have to refreeze. So you have to click the freeze button again and then select this area. And it's minus that area. Okay. Okay, now maybe if I do this, I'm just gonna scroll. You can scroll down here. You can kind of see what gets caught and what doesn't. It's not always going to matter. Like, you're not going to have to grab everything. But you can kind of just go through and select what you want using this tool. You know, there's obviously a little bit of a patience you have to have for it. Okay. And it's probably just because I moved really fast in this point. If I want to go frame by frame, by the way, down here, and just go frame by frame, I can hold control and then left arrow and right arrow. So I can just go boom. But if you're not doing a lot of movement, it's not a big deal. Like, you're not going to have to do that. Again, that's control and then left and right arrow. And then let's do that over here. Let's just grab that. I'm not going to be perfect about it. You can be for your videos, but it shouldn't normally take that much time. All right, and then okay. Yeah, that's fine. I'm just going to grab that. Okay. You can see down here where it's green, it's basically like pre-rendering it so that it just like remembers what I've selected. It's doing the same thing as essentially pressing freeze. And as I scroll, you can see it's getting green on here too. I'm just grabbing this marker, by the way, and just, it's like in Premiere. It's like you're just, it's the marker set to where the timeline of the video. Okay, good. So in this part too, I'm just gonna select it. Again, you don't need to be like super perfect about it. Like, After Effects is smart; it'll recognize what to grab, but you do have to kind of correct some areas. But depending on how, you just have to watch for this purple line. So you can see I'm looking at the purple line around me. And then, boom, looks like it's keeping pretty good. Yeah. And I'm just scrolling through now, which is basically just manually freezing. But then you can see my arm gets all fucked up here. So I'm going to grab that. Grab that. It's not going to be necessary for what I'm going to do with the animation. Ew, look how hairy my arm is. But this is just to give you like how to solve this issue. All right, I'm just going to grab here. Whatever. Okay, good. So this is probably fine. This is probably good enough. And again, you don't have to be super detailed on this if you know where you're going to be putting your text animation. So once it's done, or you pressed freeze, and you know, let's make sure down here is also. I just want to make sure this is fully green. But once this is done, you're simply going to go back to your composition by clicking up here. It's like a tab. So you go back here, and now I'm fully cut out, which is kind of cool. So that's cool. But we need the background back, right? So I'm just going to I can actually duplicate this by, let's see. You can press Control D to duplicate. It's going to have to basically re-render that. But I'm going to, it's also already rendered, so like there's now, sorry. If I press V, it gives you back to your arrow tool, or you can just press up here. But, you know, there's two of me. But on one of them, I don't want the background. So I'm going to select this, and then you'll see up here you have your have tabs. Like here's the project panel with the video and the composition. But if I click here, this is where you can actually like control your effects. I can also drag this and like set it over here just in case I want to be able to look at both at the same time. But on the bottom layer, so on video number 2, I'm just going to turn, I'm actually just going to press the effects button and turn it off. Okay. So what that means is this top video has the rotor brush effect applied still. This is on, which means that I can still move myself around. And the bottom video is me with it turned off. So the background is still there. So if I press Control T, that brings up the type tool. You can see the type panel down here, character and paragraph. I can click anywhere. I'll just click here and I'll say boom. And if I hold Control Enter, it just sort of like leaves that environment. But you can also, you know, if you press this, go type boom. You can press this again. And there you go. So here's a text layer. You can see it because it's red. I can put this behind me. And also I can grab the Y tool. If I press Y again, which is this tool right here, I can grab the anchor point and I can put it in the center, let's say. If I hold Control, it'll snap to an environment. So I can press Y, grab the anchor point, and then hold Control and it'll snap. So I want it to be centered. Good. Press V to get back to this tool. And I can put it behind me, and I can, if I grab a corner, like this little box here, or actually no, let's go to the layer. I can press S, and I have the scale, so that's the size. I can just scale that up. So I can just position this where I want it to be. So here is text. Now it's behind me. I can make it go, so here's where my arrow is going up, where I'm pointing to the text. So if I press P, and again, yours will look like this. If you press P, you'll get the position property. And here's like where you can change those properties. Boom, just like in Premiere. So I can make it just appear by, I can just drag the layer by going like this, and then it'll just appear. But if I want to like actually animate it on, I can press this little stopwatch, boom, and you get what's called a keyframe. So that's saying like be at this position at this time. So at 3 seconds and 5 frames, like this is the position I want boom to be in. And I can go a little bit earlier. And this is X and Y. So like your standard, you know, left and right and up and down. So I'm just going to have this go, I'm going to pull it down a little bit by scrolling on just the Y-axis here. And if I press Control +, you'll be able to zoom into the timeline. You can also do that here. I think it's the same in Premiere. And if I highlight these two keyframes and press F9, you might have to hold the function key, the little FN button by the control key. That will turn this into easy ease. So what I like to do, so something you could do is you can highlight these, and then if you press this button here, this is the graph editor. And it may look like this, but you want it to look, this is the value graph, but ignore that, you don't care about that. Click this little button and change it to speed graph. And this is the curvature of the speed. So it starts off slow, this is the peak speed at the top, and then it slows down. That is an easy ease out, and then easy ease back in. But you can actually change this by grabbing these handles, and I can grab this and bring it all the way to the end over here, and then grab this one and drag it like that. So it creates this sort of pattern, and it means it starts fast and then slows down. So I'm gonna exit this environment by pressing this button over here, the graph editor. I'm gonna press Control minus to zoom out again. And then if I press, I know in Premiere I think it's I and O to go in and out, but in After Effects it's actually B and N. All right, so you can sort of you can highlight that section, and then if you go to the Preview tab, it'll look like this, Preview, and make sure nothing is selected. You can just press play, and what it'll do is it'll render just that section. I can actually, so my finger comes up over here, so I actually want the text. I can drag this layer, I just want it to come up when I'm pointing. And then I can actually just drag this section of the in and out point. Again, that's B and N to select those points. And we got boom, boom. Okay. So then if I want to also have it like fade on at the same time, I can press Shift while this layer is selected, press Shift T. That brings up the opacity. That's how transparent it is. So I can just set a, let's say at the beginning I want it to be 0% opacity. So I can set it to 0, set a stopwatch. The keyframe's there. And then just go forward a little bit. And then turn it just all the way to 100. It automatically sets the keyframe. And then I can preview again. And then maybe I want to also have it fade off immediately. I can press this button here. This adds a new keyframe. And then go forward a little bit, dragging this in the timeline, and then bring it back down to 0. Okay, good. So now that this text is animated in, I can actually press Control D and duplicate this layer. And then if I want, I can drag it forward in the timeline a little bit. And then you'll see that it happens again. But if I'm just going to bring this endpoint forward a little bit. If I double click it, I can change this to something else. So I'll say jump. I'll just do like a simple 4-letter word. And then I'm going to press Control Enter to escape that. Now you can see it's not center aligned to me, which is kind of annoying, right? So what you can do to center it, so jump is like more centered with the frame. I can highlight the layer jump, press A, which brings up that anchor point control. And this also is controlled by an X value and a Y value. And if I just drag this, it changes the anchor point by adjusting the layer around the anchor point. So I can just adjust this slightly to get it here. And then again, if I go to the Preview tab up here and I press play, you can see. Cool. So you can do that. then see I have another point here. So if I want, I can duplicate jump, Control D, drag it over here to where it appears. And then let's say I want to have it be a little bit earlier. Again, if I press A, this will appear here again. I'm going to change the word. I'll just say, I guess that's my right. So I'll say right. And then I can adjust the anchor point to be closer to my right. And also, if I press Shift and hold and press S, that'll bring up the scale. So I may want to do that, bring it down a little bit, and then continue adjusting the anchor point so it's like that, whatever. So right, I'll click away so it's not highlighted, right. And then of course I'm going to duplicate this, drag it forward in the timeline, press A, and then drag the x-axis over here. You can see it highlights the layer even though it's the opacity is down. And then I'm also going to just change this. I'm going to double click the layer, type left, Control Enter to exit that. Boom. Cool. Excuse me. All right, so that's like the basics of how you do that. Now let's say I wanted to add some kind of cool effect like a blur, like it blurs away. So if I go to, let's see the effects panel. We're looking for the effects panel, but I don't see it here. So if I go to Window and I click Effects and Presets, you get this panel over here. I can drag this down so I can see more of it. And I can actually just type into here, blur. And there's if I go to blur, you'll see blur and sharpen down here. You'll see all sorts of blurs. The one I would recommend using is probably, where is it? Fast box blur. That's probably the best one to use for what I'm going to do. But there's so many effects in here. There's so many things you can do in After Effects. But I can just drag it onto the layer. And you can see in my effects controls, which again, if you didn't move it, would be next to your project panel as a tab, but I'm going to move it back. So you have your blur radius, which just means how blurry is it. And if I turn this value up, you don't need a lot, like 11 is enough to do that effect. I can press a keyframe here, or you see the stopwatch, I can press that. And then if I go to the layer, you won't see it immediately unless I toggle this. And then even then, you'll have to go to like toggle down effects, fast box blur, and then there's the keyframe right there. But an easier thing to do is just kind of like, if you press M, it'll close the layer altogether. And then you click the layer again and press U, it'll bring up just all the keyframes that are applied. So I'm just going to drag this blurry keyframe. I'm going to drag it over to here. And then I'm just going to bring this all the way down. So now it'll turn on like that. Boom. Right? So if that's what you want to do. Now you can copy and paste these effects. So if I go to the first keyframe of this specific effect and I only highlight these keyframes, I can press Control C, so copy, and then I can go to this other layer. And again, if I press the layer and I click U on my keyboard, I can see the available keyframes there. And I can press Control V, and boom, it pastes the keyframes. Now it's going to look like this, which means you can't highlight them. It's still technically, like it shows that there is keyframes here by these little dots, but you're not going to be able to see it until you press U, and then it's going to show those keyframes. And you can select them and move them around or adjust them. So you can do that, and then I'm going to do that for each of these. I'm going to just select the layer, press Control V. I still have it selected. Press U so I can see it. And then I'll do it here too. And I'll do it around the same point as the other ones. I think it's like 1 or 2 frames in. Press Control V, press U. Boom. All right, so, and if let's see if I can get back to preview easily. You may have to just close this. Where is the preview panel? Whoops. After Effects can be a little finicky sometimes. Well, I can't see the preview panel for whatever reason, so I'm just going to close this panel. But if I click this little hamburger menu button over here and then click close panel, boom, there you go, it's closed. I can see preview now. So go back to preview, click that, and you can see what that's going to look like. Okay. And if you want to preview at a higher quality, you can see the resolution right here. It says half. That's why it looks blurry. I can just put it to full, and then it'll load at its full resolution. Cool. I'm just going to click anywhere in the timeline. If I press M, it'll close all the layers out. And I'm just going to drag this beginning point and this end point. So this video is about 15 seconds long. You're probably going to be doing it in chunks that are short. But that is the basic way that you do that effect. Once you've done it a couple times, it's actually like pretty simple. But yeah, dude, I mean, it's pretty straightforward. The first step is just getting a proper cutout of yourself. If you do want to do like if I wanted to put like a shadow, like on the text or something, like start getting a little bit more fancy, I could show you how to do that, but for now, I'll just keep it simple. So that's the basic way this is done. If you have any questions, just let me know.